In New Jersey, on a street long abandoned, there stood an apartment building, towering like a monument to a forgotten time. Broken windows, rusted balconies, and stained gray walls made the place look more like a giant tomb than a home for the living. Locals had long grown used to avoiding it. For decades, stories had circulated. Anyone who moved into apartment 9B vanished without a trace. Every night, when the city grew silent, a single window on the 9th floor still glowed with light. It seemed as if someone lived there, or worse, that something had never left. Whispers drifted through the cold night air, like the sighs of a past that refused to be buried. The 42-year-old woman stood with a small suitcase in hand before the rusted iron doors of the building. Her name is Rose. After a shattered divorce, she believed that a new beginning here might help her escape the weight of her past. The cheap apartment, tucked away in a neglected part of town, was her last choice when every other door in life had already closed. Inside, the air was thick with mold and dust, making her very first breath catch in her throat. The old wooden stairs groaned underfoot, a low, weary lament. The hallway stretched long and dim, lit unevenly by flickering fluorescent bulbs, each sputtering glow breaking into the silence like the faint heartbeat of something near its end. At the far end of the hall, the elderly manager appeared briefly. Her wrinkled face and averted eyes betrayed no warmth as she handed over the keys. In her husky voice, she offered only a curt remark. This apartment never kept its tenants for long. No further explanation, no friendliness. Then she disappeared behind a rotting wooden door, leaving behind a heavy silence. The door to 9B creaked open with a drawn-out groan. The room inside was small and cold. Water stains streaked the walls, plaster peeled from the ceiling, and the window hung slightly ajar, letting the night wind slip through with a faint hiss like whispering breath. The woman set down her suitcase, reminding herself this was only a beginning, then sat gently on a dust-covered chair. Night fell faster than she had expected. The city outside lay nearly silent, broken only by the distant hum of engines. At midnight, a new sound rose within the apartment. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, steady, as if someone were moving from the bedroom into the living room. But she knew with certainty that she was alone. She rose quickly and switched on every light. The yellow glow washed over the space, revealing no one. The footsteps ceased, leaving only an oppressive silence that seemed to freeze the air. She moved cautiously, ears straining, heart pounding. But there was nothing. Back in the living room, her eyes caught on the wall beside the chair. A thin crack had appeared, long and narrow like a claw mark. The paint peeled back, cold and gray, evoking the image of torn skin. She reached out to touch it. The edge felt sharp, icy, and she drew her hand back instantly. The air thickened with dampness, as though the wall itself had exhaled a weary breath. That night, sleep was fractured. The ticking of the clock echoed too loudly in the silence. She drifted in and out of uneasy dreams, often waking with the uneasy sensation that someone was standing just beyond her sight, separated only by a thin wall. By morning, pale sunlight pushed through the dusty window, illuminating the crack still etched deep in the wall. It was small, but its presence could not be ignored. She stepped closer, studying it. Something seemed to stir beyond the surface, dark, wavering, as though the wall was not solid at all, but a stretched skin concealing whatever lay beneath. A new beginning, that was what she had told herself. But apartment 9B seemed to have very different plans for its newest tenant. Nah. Nights inside apartment 9B felt longer than anywhere else. When the clock struck midnight, the darkness seemed to thicken, swallowing every corner of the room. The woman lay still on the old bed, trying to reassure herself that the sounds from the night before were nothing but illusions born of exhaustion. But the silence was too heavy, as though the entire building had stopped breathing, waiting for something to reveal itself. Then the sounds began. No longer the scattered footsteps, but a faint murmur so soft it almost blended with the beating of her heart. At first, it resembled the wind slipping through a crack in the door. But the longer she listened, the clearer it became that there was rhythm in it. Fragmented whispers, vague as echoes from someone else's dream. The sound didn't come from outside, but from deep within the wall across from her bed. She sat upright, eyes fixed on the cold surface. The small crack from the previous night now seemed longer, branching into fine lines like a dark network of veins. The murmur repeated itself, sometimes near, sometimes distant, at times as if right by her ear. She couldn't make out the words, yet she felt with certainty that they were pleas for help, strained, desperate. The tension kept her from sleep. In the flickering light of the bedside lamp, she opened her notebook and began to write down what she heard. At first, only messy notes. Male voice, low, fragmented, then female voice, sobbing like begging. At times, the sounds rose into shrill pitches, like a child lost in the dark. Night after night, the notebook filled with senseless but haunting lines. Each time she reread them, it felt as though she was touching fragments of lives trapped within the wall. Those who had once lived here, now reduced to ceaseless echoes. One afternoon, as she went downstairs, the old landlady appeared again. Slow, silent. Her eyes avoided hers, her lips pressed tightly when the woman tried to mention the sounds in the wall. For a brief moment, the landlady's face tensed, then froze into cold indifference. Without a word of explanation, she turned away, leaving behind the empty hallway and the flicker of a buzzing light bulb. That avoidance was confirmation enough. There was something here best left unspoken. When she returned to her apartment, the wall had changed visibly. The cracks stretched into jagged lines, swelling into rough patches, its colors sickly, like something festering beneath a thin layer of skin. At times, when outside light shone through, the surface seemed to ripple, rising and falling as if it were breathing. She no longer knew what was real and what was exhaustion-induced hallucination. The voices were no longer fragmented whispers. They became broken phrases, cries for help, choked off mid-sentence. One night, as she scribbled notes, the sound erupted into a scream not only heard in her ears, but vibrating through her bones, shaking her to her knees. The room trembled, dust falling from the ceiling. In the haze of that moment, she collapsed, her notebook flying across the floor, its pages crumpled, ink half-written. The scream echoed in her skull even as darkness surged in, dragging her into unconsciousness. When she opened her eyes, the gray pallor of morning light seeped through the dusty window. The room was silent. The wall stood still, as though the night had been only a nightmare. Yet on the ground, beside the fallen notebook, lay scattered dust and the air reeked of mold stronger than ever. The crack had now spread across the wall, like dark veins burrowing into the apartment. The woman sat motionless, her eyes bloodshot from sleeplessness. She realized she was no longer just a tenant. She had become a witness, and perhaps the next victim. In the story the wall was telling in the voices of the imprisoned dead. The third day in apartment 9B began with pale light filtering through the dusty window frame. Yet the woman no longer felt that morning meant a new beginning. Each awakening was merely an extension of the previous night's nightmare. Her head felt heavy, her eyes shadowed, her body trembling as though recovering from a fever. On the wall, the rough cracks remained, clinging to her gaze like invisible eyes. While arranging the old wooden cabinet in the corner of the living room, her fingers brushed against something wedged inside a rotten drawer. Carefully pulling it out, she discovered a thin notebook, its cover peeling, reeking of mold. The pages had yellowed, stained with water, as if they had been left in dampness for years. As she flipped through, frantic handwriting emerged. The former tenant of this apartment had left behind entries soaked in fear. At first, the handwriting was steady, describing insomnia, strange murmurs echoing from the walls. But as the pages went on, the writing grew shaky, fragmented, as though written under unbearable terror. The middle pages spoke of being watched. The writer described hallways that stretched endlessly at night, with doors repeating the same number. I left my room to find a way out, but the corridor only led me back to 9B. Every door was 9B. I don't know what is real anymore, what is illusion. Another passage read, "Sometimes I feel breath right at the back of my neck. When I turn around, no one is there. Yet the mold and chill wrap around me as if a body were standing inches behind." The woman's spine turned cold. These descriptions mirrored her own experiences over the past few days. The final page of the notebook ended abruptly. Only a single hurried line remained. Ink smeared, incomplete. "If anyone finds this notebook, I have been sworn." The last word vanished in a blurred streak, as though torn away by an unseen hand. The woman gripped the notebook tightly, her palm icy. Silence in the room suddenly thickened, as though someone were standing behind her, watching every move. That feeling grew stronger. Each time she turned, the light flickering through the window revealed nothing but emptiness, yet her eyes insisted on a fleeting shadow, a figure. Not solid, but like a dark stain against brightness, appearing for a moment before dissolving. When night fell, the wall no longer whispered in fragments. Now it hummed in dissonant chords, layered voices overlapping, occasionally breaking into warped laughter. The sounds wound through the apartment, like dozens of throats imprisoned, singing together a chorus of despair. At the height of the tension, footsteps echoed from the hallway. Slow, heavy, each step striking like stone. The woman pressed her eye to the peephole. The faint light of the flickering bulb revealed a figure passing by. It was her upstairs neighbor. She had never seen him in daylight. A gaunt frame, hollow eyes, skin pale and drained of light. He did not look at her, did not knock, only trudged past with weighty steps. At the end of the corridor, the bulb sputtered and died, swallowing his form into darkness. Her heart raced wildly. She pressed her back against the door, her body rigid. The apartment was no longer just a whispering wall. It contained an unseen presence that lingered, watching, following. She realized loneliness was no longer the worst fate. Far more terrifying was the knowledge that she would never again be truly alone. In the corner of the room, the tattered notebook lay open, its frantic scrawls seeming to shift beneath the weak light, as if that invisible hand had never stopped writing. One night, just as the clock struck midnight, the entire apartment was swallowed by suffocating darkness. The power went out. The room was as silent as if buried deep underground. The woman rummaged through the cabinet, finding an old flashlight whose dim beam cast a trembling cone of pale yellow, flickering as though it might die at any moment. The hallway outside stretched into silence. Every step she took echoed unnaturally, like the hollow resonance of a bottomless well. The walls on either side were mottled with shadows, paint peeling away like scales from rotting flesh. The stench of mildew was stronger than ever, creeping into her nose like the cold scent of grave soil. She slowed her pace, the flashlight sweeping across the doors. 9B. Dace. Another step forward. 9EB again. Every few meters, the same number repeated, unchanged, frigid. No exit, no staircase, no entrance. Only an endless chain of the very apartment she was trying to escape. Her heart hammered as she spun around, hoping to find her way back. But behind her, it was the same. Rows of doors, each etched with the same number, as if the building had swallowed her into a labyrinth with only one inevitable end. The flashlight flickered, its wavering light grazing the wall. Faint handprints appeared. At first, just a few smudges, but with each step, more emerged, layer upon layer, thick with dried, blackened blood. Every handprint pointed in one direction, the door of 9B before her. A chill swept across her face, making her shudder. The door trembled, then its surface began to deform. Wooden planks swelled, split, folding inward into grotesque ridges. From its cracks, a dark void gaped wide, curling like jagged teeth. The door to 9B was no longer a door. It had become a vast open mouth, waiting. She stumbled backward, trembling hands clutching the flashlight. But its frail light could not hold back the darkness bleeding from the cracks in the wall. The fractures spread, weaving into a tangled web, flowing like veins of black, swelling, pulsating, groaning. Each crack opened like a tiny mouth, whispering in hundreds of voices at once. The hallway filled with sound, chaotic, overlapping. Cries, wails, hoarse laughter. Together they formed a grotesque chorus, a requiem of those devoured. Her ears rang, breath caught in her chest. She wanted to run, but her legs felt fused to the icy floor. The flashlight dimmed. In its final flicker, she saw the wall opposite. Countless faces pushing through the cracks. Twisted incomplete, eyes hollow, mouths gaping in screams. Some were mere shadows, others detailed enough to show split lips, jagged teeth, all pressed together, surging toward her. The woman let out a soundless scream. She turned to flee, but the corridor stretched on forever, no end in sight. Every step brought more doors, marked 9B, more fissures, more faces. Her lungs tightened, her heart threatened to burst. Then, behind her, a sound erupted. The warped door of 9B yawned wide into a black abyss. The entire hallway quaked, the cracks in the walls opening all at once, gasping like the lungs of a monstrous beast. A violent wind dragged her backward, pulling her off balance. She fell, fingernails clawing at the tiles, but the floor crumbled under the invisible force. Cracks spread beneath her palms, coiling like serpents, wrapping around her wrists, dragging her toward the gaping void. Her skin scraped against the fissures, searing as if cut by frozen blades. In her final moment before being consumed, the flashlight slipped from her hand, rolling across the floor. Its beam spun wildly, flashing against the wall smeared with bloody handprints. Amid the chaos, fresh words appeared, scrawled in crimson. No way out. 9B forever. Her final scream was swallowed as darkness engulfed her body. The corridor fell silent again. The cracks sealed. The door of 9B shrank back into its withered form. Only the dying flashlight remained, its light flickering faintly, like the last breath of something still alive. So. The woman's body crashed onto the living room floor like a discarded object. Everything around her was drowned in pitch-black darkness, broken only by the frantic pounding of her heartbeat echoing in her skull. When she opened her eyes, she realized she was back inside apartment 9B, but it was no longer intact. On the walls, fissures swelled grotesquely, gaping like infected wounds. They spread across every surface, crawling up to the ceiling, coiling around the floor, forming a tangled web of black veins. Each crack pulsed, rising and falling like lungs breathing. The murmurs were no longer muffled. They had become a full chorus of voices from those who had once lived here. Dozens, hundreds of voices overlapping, pleading, shrieking, laughing in rasping tones. The woman tried to rise, but the instant her hand brushed the wall, it stuck fast. The surface, once icy cold, turned soft and clammy, clinging to her flesh. She yanked hard, nails splintering, blood bursting from her fingertips, but she could not break free. The cracks widened, swallowing her joint by joint, strip by strip of skin. Her body quaked violently, her screams smothered in her throat. The skin on her arm dissolved, melting into the wall like hot wax. Vines stretched out from her flesh, branching into the growing lattice across the surface. She realized in horror she was becoming part of the apartment itself. A new layer of skin, a new voice in the eternal chorus. At the end of the hallway, the old landlady stood in silence, her dull eyes fixed upon the scene. Her silhouette was faint, as though she had witnessed this countless times before. She did not intervene nor utter a word. Her withered face bore only cold acceptance, as if this was simply the natural law of this apartment. When the assimilation reached her face, the woman sank fully into the dense blackness. Her voice shattered into fragments, blending with the hundreds of others. There was no individuality left, only a ceaseless harmony of trapped souls. She understood now. This was the fate of all who had once believed they could start anew inside 9B. Then silence reclaimed the space. The wall sealed over, smooth as though it had never opened. The apartment fell quiet again, blanketed in its heavy, moldy stench. Out in the corridor, the landlady quietly hung a fresh wooden sign upon the door, for rent. The next night, from afar, a window on the 9th floor lit up once more. How?